Just 1 second.
What do all of them have in common?
Even if you say that the only thing that is important about those three individuals in particular is that they're anti-Semitic, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago?
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Seriously, it's great to have you here today, and I'm really glad you clicked on this video because you're about to see something intense. In this breakdown, we're diving into a heated panel showdown that honestly caught a lot of people off guard, where David Hogg, known for his activism after surviving a school shooting, goes straight into a tense face-off with conservative commentator Scott Jennings, and the topic at the center of it all is not what anyone expected. Things take a sharp turn when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Candace Owens openly distance themselves from the president, which then sparks a surprising reaction from Ilhan Omar and Pete Buttigieg, who suggest Democrats might actually consider welcoming them. But here's where it gets even more intense because David isn't coming into this conversation neutral. He has a deeply personal past involving Marjorie, and what he shares during this exchange is something you genuinely need to hear firsthand to fully grasp the weight of it. Make sure you stay till the end because when David puts Scott on the spot with one direct and powerful question, you'll immediately see why this moment is spreading everywhere right now. And before we jump in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, your city or country. I always enjoy seeing how far this channel reaches, and I make a point to read every single one. All right, that's enough intro. Let's get right into the action.
The topic is adopting the kooks that defected from MAGA and now are considering the Democratic Party. I just would warn the Democratic Party because, to Scott's point, I mean, these are conspiracy theorists who believe that there's a Jewish cabal controlling the country, pulling the puppet strings, and that are going to destroy America.
Tonight, Ilhan Omar is applauding MAGA stars Candace Owens and Marjorie Taylor Greene for breaking with Donald Trump and expressing their buyer's remorse.
The thing that has been very fascinating, especially about Marjorie and Candace, is that they are not just coming out like the other ones that you'd mentioned, where they're saying this action is wrong, right? They're saying, I am done with you. We should give them credit for that.
So if somebody is ready to take that step and at least talk to us and maybe do something differently, the message cannot be, I told you so. The message has to be, welcome aboard. What else can we do together?
Ilhan Omar is saying, give them credit. Pete Buttigieg is saying, let's hold hands and say, what can we do together? Do you think that's the right move?
So look, I have to address something first, which is that when I was, I've had a personal interaction with Marjorie Taylor Greene. When I was 18 after the shooting at my high school, when I was lobbying members of Congress, my fellow activists in March for Our Lives, Marjorie Taylor Greene, before she was a member, started chasing me around saying that the shooting at my high school didn't happen, that I was a crisis actor, that I was paid by the government to do all these just horrible things that are completely false. And at the same time, what those conversations that they're talking about remind me of is my own evolution as an activist. In terms of when I was in college, I didn't go to college to just be surrounded by a bunch of liberals necessarily. I know that's hard for you guys to believe, but it's true. That's why I joined the shooting club when I was in college. And as you can imagine, Scott, I was not very popular there. But it's important to talk to people who disagree with us, because ultimately, even though we're Democrats and Republicans, we have to find what little overlap there is that we can move forward on. And look, we can speculate all we want on her intentions and why she's doing this ultimately. But from my perspective, I'm willing to take that first step and have that conversation with her. And I would challenge her to this too. If she wants to come on your show and talk to me directly about why she's changed her mind, I'm happy to do that and have that conversation. And I would challenge her to do that and prove to us why she actually is authentic and changing, and that this is not just another opportunistic political opportunity like it was when she chased me after the shooting at my high school. But I'm willing to give her a small chance to have that conversation. But it's important to note too, this is not just a Marjorie Taylor Greene phenomenon. We're seeing Tucker Carlson. We're seeing people across the board defect increasingly from Trump.
Okay.
What do all those people have
there.
in? What do all those people have in common, by the way?
Trump.
What is it they all have in
6 months
common?
ago, and now he doesn't.
When I hear Ilhan Omar, you know what I hear? How do you do, fellow anti-Semites? That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's
this is about Israel.
Not
This
so
is about.
fast.
There is a thread here, and it's so transparently obvious. And I'll be honest. I think what she did to you is abhorrent. She was a clown then. She's a clown now. This entire thing for her is political. Trump didn't want her, or didn't want to back her in a statewide race in Georgia, and she's a conspiracy theorist then, and she's a conspiracy theorist now.
All right, let's jump straight into this because what David Hogg brought into that room is honestly heavier than most people are ready to process on an emotional level. We're talking about someone who lived through one of the most devastating school shootings in recent American history. And now, he's being confronted with the reality that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is currently trying to present herself as some kind of independent political thinker, once went far beyond simple disagreement with him. When he was just 18, she didn't debate him or challenge his views respectfully. She actually followed him around, confronting him in hallways while insisting that the tragedy he survived never even happened. And now suddenly there's talk about her being welcomed into Democratic circles. It sounds unreal. And yet here we are. But what really stands out is David's reaction, because instead of shutting the door completely, he actually said he's open to giving her a small window of opportunity. Basically saying, show us real proof that this shift is genuine, and not just another calculated political move. And that level of restraint and composure is something most people would struggle to reach, because let's be honest. If someone accused you of being a staged actor after you witnessed your classmates lose their lives, offering any kind of grace would feel almost impossible. Most people would be drawing hard legal boundaries instead of offering second chances. And that's exactly why David's personal experience carries so much weight in this conversation. It's not just about feelings. It shapes the entire strategy of the debate. Even Scott Jennings, who was there representing a conservative viewpoint, had no choice but to acknowledge the reality, openly stating that what she did was completely unacceptable and calling her behavior ridiculous both then and now. And when someone on that side of the table concedes that point so clearly, it tells you everything about how damaging her past actions were. At that stage, nobody even needed to argue further because the damage had already been done long ago. And here's what many people are missing. This doesn't look like a genuine moment of reflection or growth from Marjorie. It feels more like a shift driven by circumstance. Especially after missing out on a bigger political opportunity and suddenly repositioning herself, as if she's had some kind of moral realization. And honestly, that raises more questions than answers.
Yeah, I would caution you.
I don't think
Joe think Joe Rogan's an anti-Semite. I don't think Andrew Schultz is an anti-Semite. I don't think Eric Erickson is an anti-Semite.
No.
I think there's a lot of people around the country whose names we don't know who were
We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson.
You're saying other people.
But just one second.
What do all of them have in common?
Even if you say that the only thing that is important about those three individuals in particular is that they're anti-Semitic, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago?
Well, and they were totally fine with him.
What does it say?
Look, he attracted a lot of people, and some of the people that he attracted, like, that have those views, I completely and totally disagree with. And he has been quite clear about his views on these issues, and he has led the party away from those views, and that's frankly one of the reasons they're not in it anymore.
He spoke on the phone with Tucker Carlson about 6 weeks ago.
What did he say? What did he say about him last week?
But why? I mean, look, you're arguing to me that they are repulsive people who are anti-Semitic. The president of the United States is on the phone with them, and
he disavowed them last week.
I'm just saying. But let's go back to what David said, because I think it's important. I mean, is there a way to work with a Marjorie Taylor Greene, or I mean, Candace Owens? Candace Owens, really? Is that really what Democrats are going to be doing?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and others are responsible for creating the personality that we are dealing with in the White House today and all of the issues that come along. I believe the best indicator of future performance is to look at past performance. Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't had any great Jesus moment. We've been talking a lot about him. Let me bring him to the table. She hasn't had some great Jesus moment. This is all about her. What attention would Marjorie Taylor Greene be getting today if she had not turned so fully against the president? I'm not a believer. Now, for Ilhan Omar, thank you. I believe she has the best intentions. But I'm not ready to turn my back and invite Marjorie Taylor Greene to any table that I'm seated.
And this is exactly the moment where everything starts to unravel, because David Hogg turns directly to Scott Jennings and asks a question that clearly caught him off guard. The kind of question that doesn't have an easy answer. He basically asks what it says about the president that he had no issue with these same figures just 6 months ago. And if you watch closely, you can almost see Scott freeze in real time, because there's no solid response ready. He ends up falling back on something vague about how the president attracted a lot of different people, and that's supposed to explain everything, but it really doesn't. And this is where the bigger issue comes into focus, because for years figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens were consistently presented as central voices of the movement. They were given platforms at major events, invited to speak at rallies, featured in conventions. Their endorsements were welcomed, their podcasts were part of the media ecosystem, and then suddenly when their presence becomes politically uncomfortable, there's this attempt to act like they were never truly representative in the first place. But that shift doesn't erase the past because people were watching it all unfold, and those moments are still fresh in memory, and David doesn't let the conversation drift away from that point. He pushes again by highlighting that the president was actively communicating with them, which makes the timeline even harder to ignore. And Scott's response that they were only recently distanced from just days ago doesn't really resolve anything. If anything, it raises more concerns. Because stepping away at the last minute after years of association doesn't come across as strong leadership. It feels more like reacting under pressure. And then Ana Navarro steps in and delivers what might be the most cutting observation of the entire exchange, pointing out that figures like Marjorie, Candace, Tucker, and others didn't just support the current leadership. They played a role in shaping it, and that idea shifts the conversation from simple backing to actual influence, suggesting that the current situation is not accidental, but built over time, which is exactly the part many people would rather not revisit.
Let's remember what the issue was that drove a wedge between Donald Trump and some of his biggest supportive Republican women, like Nancy Mace, like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it was the Epstein files. And as much as I disagree with them, some of them are still in Congress on so many things, I do give them credit for not having bent the knee when he brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room and tried to bully her into not voting for the release of the files. Now, what I would say to Ilhan Omar, what I would say to Pete Buttigieg, as somebody who broke with my party in 2015, the minute the guy came down the escalator and started talking about Mexicans and immigrants, is that it is hard. Pete Buttigieg is right. When you've been part of a party your entire life, when your circles, your social circles, your family circles, your professional circles are made up in that party, it is very hard to make that break. But I don't think Democrats have to say, come in, the water is warm, because it is a personal decision. It is not one that is led by people being your cheerleaders. You do it because you feel uncomfortable with the guy who's leading the party, not because you have a cheering section telling you to jump into the pool.
And just quickly, I mean, the polling suggests that there is erosion, despite the, whatever the MAGA number that Trump likes to tout. White, non-college educated graduates, that's Trump's base. 63% supported him in 2025, February of last year. 49% support him now in April 2026.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the way that this war has been conducted is not universally popular among every single MAGA voter, among every single Republican. But since the topic is adopting the kooks that defected from MAGA and now are considering the Democratic Party, I just would warn the Democratic Party because, to Scott's point, I mean, these are conspiracy theorists who believe that there's a Jewish cabal controlling the country, pulling the puppet strings, and that are going to destroy America. So if that's the unholy alliance that
these
a lot of
crooks
our
were campaigning with Trump and for Trump all over the country.
They have not changed.
They were the poster child for Trump.
The same people.
Conspiracy theorists
There's
now.
also, I mean, we didn't even mention Megyn Kelly. I mean, but again, the day before the 2024 election, she was in a closing argument campaign rally with President Trump. I mean, the idea that suddenly they're kooks and the Republican Party is happy to be rid of them is
Matt
that's
Gaetz and
brand
Marjorie
new.
Taylor
That's
Greene
new.
barnstormed the country
Yes,
on
they
behalf
did.
of Donald
And it
Trump.
really also
They
started kicking off after the
created
Epstein
this.
files.
Yeah.
too.
This part of the conversation hits in a way that I think a lot of liberal viewers really need to pause and think about. Because Ana Navarro brings up her own experience of stepping away from her party back in 2015, when Donald Trump first entered the spotlight with rhetoric about immigrants that sparked outrage. And her point is actually pretty grounded, walking away from a political identity that has shaped your friendships, your career, your family connections. And even how you see yourself is not something that happens overnight. It is genuinely difficult, and that deserves acknowledgement. But at the same time, recognizing that struggle does not mean throwing immediate support behind someone the moment they switch sides. And that is exactly why the panel pushed back on the idea that Democrats should instantly embrace Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because rewarding behavior that appears driven by convenience rather than conviction sets the wrong standard, especially when that shift seems to come right as political momentum starts fading. And when you look at the numbers, the situation becomes even clearer. Support among a key segment of the MAGA base, particularly white voters without college degrees, dropped sharply from around 63% to 49% within roughly a year. And that is not a small fluctuation. That is a major decline that signals something deeper. It suggests that these sudden changes in tone are less about a genuine shift in values and more about reacting to changing political realities. People see the trend lines and start adjusting their position accordingly. And history shows this pattern is far from new, if you go back to the era of Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s. Once his influence collapsed and his tactics were exposed, many of his most vocal allies quickly distanced themselves and acted as though they had never fully supported him in the first place. It is the same cycle repeating itself, where individuals ride the wave when it benefits them and step away the moment it turns against them. And what we are witnessing now feels like a modern version of that exact behavior. And the closing moments of the segment really drive that point home, when the panel highlights how figures like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene actively campaigned across the country in support of Trump, helping build the very movement they are now trying to separate from. And that is the core issue. You cannot play a major role in creating something and then act surprised by the outcome. It simply does not work that way. So now I am curious what you think about all of this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like and subscribe. I will catch you in the next video.